Thank you all for joining us here at I-80 Sports, where today we are talking about, is it really time to take the Montreal Canadiens seriously, as well as other news and notes around the NHL. Thank you all for joining us again here at I-80 Sports. Make sure you check out our website, i80sports.com. We actually have a shop up and we've got merch available. If you want a beanie, if you want a t-shirt, make sure you hit up our website for all of your Valentine's Day needs, guys. And make sure you also hit us up on Twitter at I80_sports NHL for all of your weekly NHL content. And Tom, first of all, just to introduce you, how you doing today, Tom?
Doing well.
Doing well. We have a special guest with us this week. Coming to us from the Twitter sphere itself, we have our friend Tyler here, who is going to be our Blackhawks aficionado for the week. Tyler, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you can be found in the Twitter sphere?
I can be found at Bleacher Mob Takes.
Bleacher Mob Takes. You can find him there. Please make sure that you follow him on Twitter as well. He's got some good takes and nightly takes on a lot of games throughout the NHL. So make sure you hit him up for a lot of that good information. But today we are starting first with some, weekly NHL news, which, well, it's time to check the COVID panic button right now. And, well, the NHL is actually trying to make some changes on and off the ice to stop the spread of COVID-19. And I'm just going to read this verbatim from Elliotte Friedman because I don't feel right necessarily paraphrasing his words on this one. So this is per Elliotte Friedman. If you're not aware of him, make sure you follow him on Twitter. He's a really, really good follow. Number one, glass will be removed behind the benches, and they are considering deploying portable air cleaners behind the benches to improve air quality and circulation. Number two, players and coaches are no longer permitted to arrive at the arena more than 1 hour and 45 minutes before puck drop. All meetings, whether game day or not, should be virtually conducted. And number three, teams are being asked to utilize or create additional locker room space for themselves and their opponents, with the league looking to have at least 6 feet between players at each of their stalls. So obviously it's difficult to do anything on ice. It would be kind of comedic to, enforce penalties, for on ice contact, fighting, things like that. But it does seem like the NHL is trying their best to make the quality of life in the NHL a little bit better and to try to cut down on diseases. I'll turn it over to you guys. Tom, I'll turn it over to you first. What are your thoughts on the changes?
You know what? They seem to be good. They seem to, with what's happening in games being canceled, they seem like the right thing to do. My one issue that's standing out here is having the refs deal with the puck going over where the glass may be at their discretion. Something needs to be done about that. They're going to need to put something up, whether they're just going to have to get a welder to manufacture just like a metal bar somewhere that's a certain color, like say if it's red or green, just so the refs can see where the puck went over instead of using it at their discretion. Man, it's a fast game, a lot going on. Something's going to get screwed up because of that. So they're going to need to figure something out like that. They're going to need to put up a netting, a rope, a piece of metal. I don't know what, but they're going to need something to put up there as like a barrier to see where the puck was. That something needs to be done about that. I'm sure they're discussing it right now, but that's really my only qualm with the whole thing.
Good thoughts. Tyler, what are your thoughts on some of the changes?
Yeah, I think some of these changes are very necessary to keep the spread down. I know the players don't like it because they like their creature of habit. Like Wayne Simmons said, they're going to have to start practicing at home before they get into the rink, but it's all necessary right now.
Yeah, it's certainly for quality of life reasons. And I tend to agree with both of you that, it's not ideal in situations for the NHL right now and for the players, but it's what needs to be done because this is something, and we're going to be alluding to this a little bit more in this show. This is a virus that needs to be taken seriously and needs to be handled with utmost importance and care. And to tag on to what Tom was saying, need to figure out, where the puck goes out. There was a big game in football last night. Why don't you just put up goalposts and just, they hit the field goal, then there you go. You could just do it that way to, handle that. Now, because of the spread of coronavirus, 7 more games have been postponed due to COVID. This is actually relatively breaking news. I mean, past 2 weeks now, we've had relatively breaking news like each night, guys. So 3 Devils games have been postponed this week, so they're not going to be starting until next week. 2 Buffalo Sabres games and 2 Minnesota Wild games have been postponed due to ongoing COVID issues for all 3 teams. And for the Devils, in their case, they now are up to 19 players on COVID protocol. That is very, very, very rough right now. And Tom, is there any light at the end of the tunnel right now for either team?
I mean, they'll get there eventually. It's just a matter of when they'll get there. You know, as we have seen a little bit, cases are starting to drop, which is a good thing. You know, they'll get there. It's just a matter of when they get there and how they're going to make these games up. Because, you know, they may come down to games towards the end of the season where you're going to have to play, you know, you may have to play 3 in a row, get a day off, and then play another 2 in a row or whatever just to make the season up. And, you know, when you do something like that, that's a opening for somebody to get hurt, somebody to get seriously injured. That's an opening for maybe even a goalie to get hurt. That's where, remember the 2 goalie rotation we spoke about a few weeks ago? That's where it's going to come in handy. But say one of those goalies gets hurt, then what do? You got to pull a guy up from the minors, and will that quarantine still be in effect? And there's a whole slew of things that are going to go on with this. But, you know, the positive with this thing is that as we're seeing, numbers are starting to drop. So fingers crossed that hopefully this is the last we hear of this. We don't know. Hopefully it is.
Yeah, hopefully. Tyler, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a shame. You never like to see games canceled or postponed, and they are going to have to, like Tom said, have to play may have to play 3 games in 4 nights or something like that, just to make them up. So it's a serious injury risk, really.
Yeah, it's going to be rough for all teams that do end up having postponements due to COVID-19. And just remember, all these teams that are currently postponed because of their own COVID issues, it's not just them that are getting postponed now. It's other teams that are being affected around the league as well. The Flyers are being affected. Boston Bruins are being affected. You know, this is a trickle-down effect that is now going to start affecting the rest of the league, even though that they are not stricken with COVID protocols at the moment. So it's going to be a situation that we're going to be monitoring within the next few weeks. It's unfortunately something that we have to continue to cover, and it's going to be a weekly fixation on this show, unfortunately. But moving on to brighter topics, I did want to look a little bit before we dive into our team of focus for this week. Look at, who's hot and who's not lately. And we've got a couple teams who have been really, really hot lately in the standings. Your top team in the league right now, and this is going to make Tom pretty happy, the Toronto Maple Leafs are currently the top team in the league. And as much as I want to say it surprises me, it doesn't, because they are that good of a team right now, and they are firing on all cylinders. Other teams that are also doing well, I'm not going to mention the team that we are going to talk about because they're the number 2 team in the league right now. Some other teams that are hot right now, the Bruins, the Flyers, the Capitals, all 3 of these teams are looking good. And of course, your reigning Stanley Cup champion, the Tampa Bay Lightning, are also doing well. And surprisingly, the Florida Panthers are finding their way through despite starting their season late. So I wanted to turn it over to you guys on the who's hot, commodity right now. Which team right now do you feel, of the teams that I just mentioned, which one do you feel like looks the strongest at the moment or has had the best past couple of weeks? Tyler, let's start with you.
I think the Leafs have looked great. We'll see how the Simmons injury really affects their lineup and stuff like that, because he's out 6 weeks. So we'll see how that affects the lineup. But I think the Toronto Maple Leafs have played fantastically. Surprisingly, Florida has also been fantastic. So
certainly. I agree. I mean, we'll have to see what ends up happening with the Leafs injuries for not even just Wayne Simmons, but also Joe Thornton, who they've been without as well. He's been a fixture on that first line since the start of the season. So it'll be interesting to see where he slots in when he does eventually come back. Same with Wayne Simmons. Tom, who is your hot team at the moment?
You know what I like what the Leafs are doing as well. I watched their game against Vancouver Saturday night, man. Austin Matthews is unreal right now. Second line was also playing well with Simmons, Tavares, and Nylander, man. Hell of a second line right there. I mean, had to have 2 lines like that. That's a team that could contend if they keep it up. We don't know. Still early. Like what the Bruins are doing too. The Bruins seem to just decide to beat the Philadelphia Flyers in the third period whenever they think they have the game set. It seems like every time they play, Flyers carry the lead into the third. The Bruins walk out with the win. But you know what? That top three in the East right now, obviously it's still early, but it really is turning into a three-way race at the top with the Bruins, the Flyers, and the Caps. It's like all three teams cancel each other out. The Flyers went down to DC yesterday, 7-4 win down there. And then, DC, the Capitals, they've had some good wins against the Bruins in the past weeks too. So it's turning into like a three-way race up top, and every team's canceling each other out. So it's good and bad because it's looking like that maybe only one playoff spot will be up for grab in that East Division as we wind down towards the end. Obviously, we're still months away from that. But if this holds up, that's what's going to happen. The Bolts on fire, Stanley Cup champions, no hangover. And I like what the Panthers were doing, too, up until yesterday. Yesterday, Detroit just went in and seemed to smack them. We'll see what kind of effect it has on them in this coming week and the next coming weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm going to throw in another team that wasn't really on this list, and I was thinking about it a little bit more because this is a team that's about to get a big addition to their lineup. And the team I wanted to mention here was the Winnipeg Jets. And here's why. Because in the coming weeks, I think they're a team that could actually surprise a number of teams because of the amazing center depth that they now possess. You've got Mark Scheifele. Pierre-Luc Dubois is about to debut. Adam Lowry has been fantastic for them as well. He has been secretly one of their best forwards on the team. Actually, a guy that I just picked up in fantasy, and I'm actually very, very happy to pick him up, especially with all the Devils that I currently have out. And also Minnesota Wild. But, I think Minnesota has a really, really good chance of climbing in these rankings. It's going to be tough in the North Division amongst all the Canadian teams. My goodness, it has been fun watching the North Division in general. And, segues are fun. So it's time to segue on over to a particular North Division team that has also been surprisingly lighting the lamps lately. It's time to talk about it. Is it time to take the Montreal Canadiens seriously? And I don't know. It actually might be. So here's some context to what we're going to be talking about here because, we need to go off a little bit of merit here, and we need to go based on facts and based on stats with this. So here we go. The Canadiens are currently 8-2-2 on the season thus far. They are second overall in the NHL behind the aforementioned Toronto Maple Leafs. It seems like a small sample size, but like I mentioned last week with the New York Rangers, in an 82-game season, yes, it's a small sample size. In a 56-game season, it's not so small of a sample size. Some other key stats for the Montreal Canadiens. They have 48 goals on the season thus far. That's tied for first in the entire league, and that's tied with Vancouver. Now, that's a pretty surprising stat. So who have been some of the difference makers? Well, let's name a few just going down the stat sheet. Defenseman Jeff Petrie leads the team in points and plus minus. He has 6 goals, 8 assists for 18. No, not 18. I can't do math. 6 goals, 8 assists for 14 points on the season. He is a plus 14 overall as well. Another player rather that has been doing very well for the Canadiens, Tyler Toffoli, who leads the team in goals with 9. And right behind him is Josh Anderson, who is second on the team with 8 goals. And coincidentally enough, they were both off-season acquisitions. Now, who's also been succeeding for them in net? Jake Allen. Jake Allen has been a brick wall for Montreal thus far. He has 5 games played. He has 4 wins to 1 loss. He has 9 goals allowed on 149 shots, which is good for an absurd 1.81 goals against average and a 940 save percentage. Again, he was acquired this offseason. So you're seeing a trend here in terms of maybe why Montreal is doing so well. Younger talent has also fit in very well for this team. Defenseman Alexander Romanov and forward Nick Suzuki have been looking very comfortable on this team thus far and look like one of the veterans on this team as well. That being said, there is some cause for concern, and to play devil's advocate on the Canadian side, their special teams is left something to be desired. The Canadiens are averaging right now about 12.5 penalty minutes per night. That's the second highest in the entire league. They have a problem staying out of the penalty box right now. They are currently 14th in power play conversions, and 18th in penalty kill percentage. So they're middle of the road in both the power play and the penalty kill. The question becomes for them, can Jake Allen keep his career renaissance up? And can Carey Price turn around his okay season thus far? But that being said, with all that the groundwork that I just laid out here, I want to turn it over to you guys, and I want to know your thoughts. Is it truly time to start taking Montreal seriously as a playoff contender, maybe even a Stanley Cup contender? Maybe we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Maybe we're not. Tough to say. Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you first. What are your thoughts on the Montreal Canadiens thus far?
Okay, well, you know what? This sort of reminds me of another shortened season back in 2013. They had a really good year then. They won their division. Believe they finished, I'm trying to think here. I think second or third in the East that year. I don't really remember. I'm having a little trouble remembering that. But, it's sort of the same thing was going on. Very team-first approach. Didn't have one guy carrying the team, very team-first approach. Won games by committee. All four lines chipped in. Similar thing going on here this year. Are they a playoff team? I think so. If they keep this up, I definitely think they're a playoff team. Could they win a round? Quite possibly they can. They might win one round. But to say they may go to that Final Four, to say they may go to the finals, I just don't think so right now. I don't think so. The way I'm seeing the Leafs play right now, the way Austin Matthews is playing, the way the Leafs are playing, and if the Leafs get healthy around playoff time, if those two meet in the second round, I just think Toronto has too much firepower for Montreal to overcome. I really do. However, if they do play each other, we haven't seen the Habs and the Leafs play each other in the playoffs since sometime in the 70s. I believe 1978, if I'm not mistaken. So it would be awesome to see a Habs-Leafs series go 6 or 7 games. Maybe at that point we'll be able to have some fans in the building. I'll tell you what, I'll watch every game glued to the TV if that series goes 6 or 7 games. That would be a lot of fun to watch.
That would be a ton of fun to watch indeed. Tyler, what are your thoughts on the Montreal Canadiens thus far?
Yeah, I think that all these offseason acquisitions have really helped him out. I think Jake Allen wants to prove to everybody that he could still be a number one goalie. I remember Jake Allen because he'd always give the Blackhawks fits. So I'm glad he's out of our division into Canada's division. But yeah, I think Jake Allen is on a prove everyone wrong. And Tyler Toffoli has great veteran leadership that we saw in the Stanley Cup runs with the Kings. And I think that those two, along with the other, are really all those older veteran guys are really tutoring the young Suzuki type players, and they're really helping them out during this shortened season.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And to be honest, I think there's a really good chance, my opinion on this one, I think there's a good chance that the Canadiens can make the playoffs this year, and a really good chance that they end up making it there. Maybe not even a question mark at this point. I think it's almost slowly becoming a foregone conclusion that they're going to be a team that finishes in the top 4 in the North Division and could be a legitimate threat to other teams once they actually get to the playoffs. This is a team that, Jake Allen, so long as he can keep it up, that's awesome. But, a lot of teams are now forgetting, oh, wait, they have Carey Price. And Carey Price is going to be the other factor to this as well, because Carey Price can steal games. He proved it in this past playoffs. He has stolen games away from other teams. They can really surprise teams. They have a legitimate tandem now in Price and in Allen. Beyond that, you're starting to get more offensive firepower. And I mentioned it in the summertime when the deal happened. Tom, you didn't necessarily like the deal when it happened when when Max Domi left. Yeah, we're stuck in the past right now, dude. But when Max Domi left the Canadiens and went to Columbus in exchange for Josh Anderson, I really liked the deal for the Canadiens there, and I thought Josh Anderson was going to be a good get for them. And so far, it's really proven to be so. And Max Domi has been slow to start in Columbus so far. So I think the Canadiens for their lineup made the right deal for Josh Anderson. I think Tyler Toffoli has really exploded. Now, granted, he's scored, I think, 7 or 8 of his 9 goals against the Vancouver Canucks. So, so long as the Canadiens keep playing the Canucks, Tyler Toffoli succeeds. So, but that being said, Tyler Toffoli, he's a goal scorer. He's a finisher. He's a guy that can pot at least 20 goals this season. I think that is a good number to kind of bet on for Tyler Toffoli to end the season with. I think if he can get you 20 goals, I think that's going to help the Canadiens make the playoffs. I think if Nick Suzuki can get 10 to 15 goals, that also helps. And solid defense all around. Jeff Petrie needs to keep up his performance. Shea Weber needs to be defensively solid for the rest of the season as well. And Alexander Romanov, I was surprised that he can really throw his weight around with some of the bigger guys in the league. I'm really, really pleasantly surprised by how well Alexander Romanov has transition to the NHL game. So it's going to be interesting to watch going forward and interesting to monitor the Canadiens going forward. But I think based on all three of our opinions, I think it's safe to say that we can take the Canadiens seriously at this point. And I'm hyped to see what they can do going forward. But speaking
we forgot to mention Jonathan Drouin too. He's he's an awesome player as well.
That's a very fair point. Jonathan Drouin, and he's a guy that has been kind of quiet the past number of years, and he's always been a guy that has been so talented, but just never found the right fit with teams. And now he's finally found his way with the Canadiens, and he's always been super talented. And if he's a guy that can also, get you, between 30 to 40 points this season, that's going to be the difference maker as well for the Canadiens. And good catch on your part, Tyler, truly. And like I said, I think it's time that we start taking the Canadiens seriously. And with that said, it's time to move on to other teams that we like around the league, and maybe for me, a team that I have a bone to pick with at the moment. But we're going to start with some good stuff first. It's time for our weekly fan corners, which, Tyler, we're adding you into the mix on this one. So for those of you that already know, I am a diehard Devils fan to my detriment. Tom is a diehard Rangers fan to his detriment, and Tyler is a diehard Blackhawks fan, probably to his detriment this season, at least.
Yeah.
But so it's time for us to talk about what our favorite teams did this past week, what we've liked, what we didn't necessarily like. So, Tom, it's time to enter the Rangers realm. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Well, since my rant last week, the Rangers played two games. The Rangers won both games. They beat a very good team in the Capitals. And they beat, I don't know what to call Pittsburgh now. Pittsburgh's sort of a team that's in neutral. They don't have a GM. They don't know what direction they want to go. They're kind of just there. They're there. But the Rangers beat them. I know I sound like a broken record here, but, man, what more can you say about Artemi Panarin yet again? Really leading that team out there. Really being the player that he's earning those $11 million a year. He's earning that. He's being the best player on the ice every night. Artemi Panarin, again, broken record, but, man, I can't stop talking about him. To move it on to a fellow countryman of his, on Thursday night, Igor Shesterkin really looked like he finally was ready to play again. Looked like he was the Igor of last year. And if he keeps this up, watch out, because if Igor finds his form again, which I think he will, that's another problem that a lot of other teams are going to have. He was letting in some easy goals. He was letting in some cheap goals. But I'll tell you what, man, he looked on the money Thursday night. So watch out for Igor Shesterkin if he keeps it up. Another couple guys who are contributing right now, Ryan Strome, 2 goals Thursday night, almost had the hat trick. Botched an empty netter. What are you going to do? Pavel Buchnevich wound up getting the empty netter instead. Chris Kreider, another one. I wasn't necessarily happy with him returning. I wasn't necessarily happy with the contract. But you know what? He's contributing. He's contributing on the power play, scoring goals here and there, chipping in. But one guy I'm going to talk about right now is one of his line mates, Mika Zibanejad. They need a little more from him. They need probably a lot more from him. The guy was a borderline 50-goal scorer last year. He probably could have had 50 had he not been hurt. The season got shut down. He's got 1 goal in 10 games right now. That's not good enough. For a guy who's a number 1 center, for a guy who proved he's a point-per-game guy last year, 1 goal in 10 games is just not good enough. They need more from him, but at the same time, as a fan of the team and as somebody who wants them to do better, if he has a dud of a year, it might be beneficial as well. His contract is up soon. And if his contract is up soon and he has a bad year, the money he may be demanding might not be as much as he would have if he had a year that he was expected to have. Another guy I want to touch on is our number 1 overall draft pick, Alexis Lafreniere. A lot of people jumping on him, calling him a bust. Some guy who seemed really smart said, "Oh, they should have drafted Stutz because Stutz has 3 goals and Lafreniere only has 1." Chill out with that, man. He hasn't had a lot of time to prepare. He's only played 10 games now. In another season, when you play 10 games, some of those games are preseason games, some of those games are regular season games. He's really in a regular season would have been like a 5-game mark for him. So a lot of positives from him in that third period against Washington. Was carrying the puck, was trying to get in the perimeters again. He's getting bounced up and down the lineup, which I'm not too big on, but at the same time, I understand why Quinn has to do it. It's not like he's in the same situation as Kirill Kaprizov or Tim Stützle, where, it's pretty much okay, here you go out there and play. He's got a lot of guys ahead of him that he's got to prove that he's better than, but I saw a lot of positives Thursday night from him, and hopefully he can build on it. Another guy I want to touch on is Kako. Quinn really, really dropped the ball with him last week, but I like what he did with him Thursday. He was giving him top 6 ice time. He was really contributing out there with Strome and Panarin. Had an assist, played great in all 3 zones, and I'm happy. He's finally getting the top 6 ice time he deserves, and I'm hoping that he can build off of this. And to end this right now with a win tonight versus those dreaded New York Islanders, if the Rangers can beat them, they are in a playoff spot. Obviously still early, but something positive,
Absolutely. There's a lot to look forward to right now for the Rangers right now, especially in the East and, who they've been facing lately. I think any team facing the Islanders right now, it's erratically win or loss. It's tough to predict the Islanders on a nightly basis at the moment. I mean, at least on my end. But that was Tom's Rangers realm. It's time to check the temperature in Tyler's Blackhawks balcony right now. So, Tyler, you have the floor talking about the Chicago Blackhawks.
Oh, yeah. Hey, welcome, everybody. What can I say? The Blackhawks are 4-4. They're above 500 after a slow start, and they're doing pretty well. They did pretty well this week, and goaltending was okay. Kevin Lankinen has really been a savior from their goaltending. Their defense still lets in too many goals, in my opinion, but we've seen more help for Patrick Kane, and we see Dominique Kubalik be out there making things happen on the ice, and Alex DeBrincat scored a goal yesterday. So, we're starting to see that our offense start scoring goals, and this is with the absence of, the captain is not there right now, Jonathan Taves, and Kirby Dach is not going to be back for a while. So we really need this forward group to make progress and keep scoring goals. And the defense, we need Adam Boqvist to come back and start playing better. He's really been struggling, and Ian Mitchell has been playing very well for just being a rookie. We have no Seabrook, so hopefully Seabrook could come back at some point, but I don't know how much he has left in the tank. Connor Murphy has been playing better, and Duncan Keith is our guy, and he really is playing still wonderful hockey. The number one goalie situation has been solved with Kevin Lankinen, but his backup goalie with Malcolm Subban the other 2 goalies basically have not been performing very well. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah, that's what I got so far. I didn't think they were going to be terrible, but I don't know if this is a playoff team right now. So we'll have to see how they grow as a team this year.
It's tough to say. I mean, I think the fact that the Blackhawks are above 500 is certainly exceeding any expectations that anybody had for Chicago this season, and Absolutely. It's certainly rough. With all the players that they have missing right now. You've got basically your core missing at the moment, and Patrick Kane having to do a lot of things by himself. But that being said, Strome has been a good player so far for the Blackhawks. Duncan Keith hasn't lost, as big a step as many people thought, and the Blackhawks are still playing decent hockey and playing better than some other teams, playing certainly better than the Ottawa Senators, who was a team that I actually had pegged as a team that could surprise some fans out there. But unfortunately, they've kind of surprised in the wrong way, unfortunately. Yeah. So, certainly thank you for your thoughts on the Blackhawks. And now it's time to go over to my Devil's Den, which I'm going to address the elephant in the room right now. I'm not wearing a Devils jersey this week. I kind of refused because, you know what? Battle of Alberta, first win by Calgary on that one. That's why I'm wearing this tonight. But I got a real bone to pick with the Devils organization right now. I really do. I'm sorry. The Devils need to be reprimanded. hard. They need to be made an example of. They undersold their COVID outbreak to the league. They still played in Buffalo last weekend, despite having a COVID outbreak. And now not only do the Devils have players that are infected, but now Buffalo is infected. And that's just not right. That's not right. You have to take this all seriously. You have to take this protocol seriously. You have to take this disease seriously. And shame on the Devils for their poor handling of this situation. I am beyond pissed at this. The league should consider making an actual example out of the Devils organization. I'm not saying like penalty of picks. I'm not saying anything like that. But if you're going to fine Washington $100,000 for breaking their COVID protocol, where's the fine for the New Jersey Devils right now? You have 19 players on COVID protocol, and you've had 15 plus players in the past week and a half on COVID protocol. Something needs to be done. Something actually needs to be put in place. Now, yes, sure. You have a couple players that are on COVID protocol because of particular situations. Connor Carrick is on there right now because he had to go back home for the birth of his child. So he doesn't necessarily have COVID, but he had to be placed on protocol. Aaron Dell is also another player that's on COVID protocol because he had to make the travel from Canada to New Jersey. He's another player that got placed on COVID protocol. Sammy Vatanen is another player that got placed on that COVID protocol as well because he had to travel all the way from Europe, all the way over here. So that way he could play for the Devils, which I don't know. Right now, he could be regretting that decision. I'm not really too sure, but it's not good right now for the Devils. I want to be here talking about the things that are positive right now for the Devils, and it's tough. It's really tough to do that this week. I can't undersell how upset I am with the organization for how poorly they've handled the situation. We were making fun of Dallas a couple weeks ago for how poorly they handled their situation. And you know what? I got to play it fair. I'm not going to be a biased Devils fan and say that, oh, this is okay, whatever. It's all different excuses. No, this is horrible. This is terrible. They are probably the worst team that has handled this entire situation, and it's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment to New Jersey. It's an embarrassment to the rest of the league that this has happened and it has now affected other teams within the league. And to hammer it home, the league needs to do something about this. And if they're going to sit there and be complacent about it, it's not going to look good for the rest of the league. They're trying to, clean things up. And I think a lot of these, cleanups that we talked about in the beginning of the show is specifically because of the outbreak with the Devils right now, because of how bad it got. And it's still continuing to be with games being delayed. So it's a situation that's going to be monitored. I have a feeling that I won't even be talking about games next week because they're delayed now until at least the 16th, I think. So I guess we're just going to have to see what ends up happening, which means we're going to miss on another Devils-Rangers matchup there, Tom. So
yeah, unfortunately, I was looking forward to watching it on Saturday just because I pretty much had nothing else to do. I mean, I hopped on the Habs and Sens game just so I could brush up for this week. So maybe that was a blessing in disguise. I don't know. It's unfortunate what's happening. It really is with them. They should. And the funny part is that the Devils have always been one of the more responsible organizations in the league. So to do this, it shows that maybe this isn't the Lou Lamoriello Devils of the old. This is just really irresponsible of them. This is a different management. I have a funny feeling that if Lou were in charge there, it would have been different. Maybe it wouldn't have happened. Maybe he would have. He would have stuck to the protocol the way Lou Lamoriello was, the way I've heard about the person he was, whether it be people who played for him or whether it be through that great Brian Burke book that I plugged weeks and weeks ago. Who knows?
I know what you mean, but it's going to be a situation that we monitor over the course of the week, and certainly I will be plugging things on Twitter, not to shamelessly plug Twitter once again down there. It's just right down there if you want to drop a follow. Yeah. Okay, cool. So anyway, so we'll get rid of that, wipe that away. So now we're going to be moving on to some general thoughts. I want to be happy again. So let's be happy right now. Let's talk about some general NHL weekly thoughts from this past week. Tom, what was something that stuck out to you this week?
Austin Matthews, man. I mean, what more can you say about this guy? 2 goals. Saturday night against Vancouver, I watched that game, man, and he made it look easy. He made it look like everybody else was a bender and he was the best player on the ice. What more can you say about this kid? And from what we're talking about for next year, what they're talking about now with the Olympics, they were hinting, with Doug Armstrong being named general manager of Canada, that the pros are going to be back. I mean, as U.S. fans, as I'm assuming we all are, with Austin Matthews as our first line center, you got to be a little bit excited for that. You may be a Leaf. You guys may not like the Leafs, but you're also American. You're number one, being a number one center for Team USA in the Olympics next year. I mean, come on, that'd be amazing. The Leafs are number one in the league right now. Everyone says, oh, it's the same old Leafs. It's the same old Leafs. They'll screw it up. They'll screw it up. Well, there's one factor there that's not there anymore. That's Mike Babcock. And I sang Sheldon Keefe's praises, and I'm still going to sing his praises until they screw up, whether they find a way to screw up or they don't screw up. I really like how he has them playing. I really like how he's utilizing all four lines. Jason Spezza scored a hat trick the other night. He's a fourth liner. I mean, come on. But I think
on that one real quick. So fun fact about Jason Spezza. This was a fun fact I read this past week, and I just found this one amazing. So Jason Spezza is the third oldest player in the league, and to kind of give perspective on how old he really is, he played in the OHL in 1999. Do you know who the player of the year in the OHL was that year?
You know what? Somebody popped in my head, but it's the wrong league. The guy I was thinking of playing the WHL.
His head coach, Sheldon Keefe, was the player of the year in the OHL that year. Just to put into perspective how old Jason Spezza is playing in the NHL right now. Sheldon Keefe was the player of the year in the OHL that year, and he's now his head coach. So.
I know, and Joe Thornton, who's also playing for him, is older than he is.
It's wild, man. They've got a wild mix of ages, but it's nuts. And yeah, I agree. I think Austin Matthews is the real deal right now. I think he could be a legitimate hard candidate right now. Tyler, what was something that stuck out to you this past week in the NHL?
I'm going to go with Jonathan Huberdeau and his 5-point night against the Nashville Predators. He just scored goals with ease that night, but it's just tough. It's a tough break that he got the loss in his 5-point night though, with the hat trick and 2 assists.
Yeah, he was impressive, and he's been impressive for the past couple of years. He's a guy that's always flown under the radar, specifically because he's played for the Florida Panthers, and it's unfortunate. But now the Panthers actually look like they actually could be a legitimate, team at the moment. They actually have hockey players and everything now, so could actually do something now. But Huberdeau, holy moly, like how good has he been lately? That 5-point night, incredible, stellar. My highlight is unfortunately another. Unfortunate thing, not to continue being mad, but what the heck is going on with officiating lately? Like, you had a crucial non-goal that should have been counted in the Carolina-Columbus matchup, and it's led to a lot of talk around the league. I mean, officiating has been rough lately. I was watching an Arizona game a couple days ago. I can't remember who Arizona was playing, but it was some of the worst and softest officiating that I have seen in a while. And I don't know what their evaluation system in officiating is in the NHL. It's kind of an unspoken thing. It's a kind of flyby under the radar type of deal, but I wish that was public so that way we knew how these officials were being graded, because man, there have been some soft calls lately, and it's been, one after the other. I feel like in every game I've watched, there's at least been one soft call a game. I'm hoping that changes soon. That might be something I highlight in the coming weeks. We'll see. That could be just a spoiler for a couple weeks from now. We'll see. But to wrap things up for today, it's time for our weekly segment, our question of the week. To explain this, as I always do, I'll usually pop onto Twitter and Facebook and ask our general public, what's a question that you have in the NHL for this week? And if you're lucky, your comment could be highlighted in a future NHL video, which today our question comes from Kevin. And the question is, how bad will this pause in the season hurt the Devils? Now, Kevin, that's a good question. As much as I want to rain on the Devils parade even more and even more and even more, yes, I am a diehard fan of the Devils. But like I said before, I'm also, not very biased. I am going to play devil's advocate here, and I actually think that the pause is actually going to do the Devils some good. Yes, it can hurt momentum, and the Devils were on a big tear before their COVID break. Their fourth line was among the best in the entire league with Miles Wood, Nathan Bastian, and Michael McLeod. They were among some of the best in the entire league. But here's the thing. This pause also gives the Devils the chance to come back fully healthy, and with a fully healthy lineup that should have rolled out on opening night. There is the possibility that Nico Hischier comes back next week. So instead of missing 15 to 20 games, he's only going to miss about 10, which is really, really good for the Devils. You end up getting Nico Hischier for more games to help you potentially be a spoiler in the East right now. It also allows Sammy Vatanen and Aaron Dell to clear COVID protocol, but then again, it also allows the rest of the team to clear COVID protocol right now. So, everybody needs to clear it. But it also gives more opportunity so that way Aaron Dell and Sammy Vatanen can play more games than they would have. Tom and Tyler, I'll give you a chance to rebut right now. Tyler, what are your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I mean, it could definitely give the Devils a chance to get completely healthy, and then they could gain a lot of momentum by being actually healthy and all kicking on all cylinders. But then again, all this break that they had could, very much hurt their potential to be where they want to be as far as go to the playoffs and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's true. Tom, what are your thoughts?
While I agree with that, they can get very healthy. A limiting factor right now is that this year, as we all know, you're only playing games in your division. From what the East is stacking up like, it looks like your top three is probably going to be DC, Boston, and Philly in any order. Flip a coin, draw some cards, throw some stuff at the wall. We don't know how that's going to finish. But I got a pretty good feeling that that's probably going to be your top three. So now you're pretty much battling for that last playoff spot. You also have teams like the Rangers. The Rangers, I'm not tooting the Rangers for them, but they look good against Washington on Thursday night. They may be finally finding their stride. You have Pittsburgh, who's sort of a team. They're kind of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde right now. But, if they get that Mr. Hyde going and they start playing well, you got to worry about them. You have the Islanders. The Islanders are always a team that's there. You never know what they're going to do. You have all these teams now who are going to keep playing games. You have the Devils who are going to be healthy, but they're not going to be caught up to speed with everyone else. And like I had mentioned earlier, you're going to get to the end of the season where these other teams that they're going to be fighting for that playoff spot against are going to be well rested, or they're going to maybe have to be playing, say, 3 and 5 nights, 5 and 7 nights. You pretty much understand what I'm getting at here. And, with so many games being played in such a short amount of time, it may very well hinder them. All these guys are talking about being healthy. Well, for one guy being healthy, it could easily be, if Nico Hischier's healthy, it could easily be that you go into the end of that season and Jack Hughes gets hurt. Your goaltending, you could have so many problems with that. So it really is a slippery slope. It lets them get healthy, yes, but there's going to be so much congestion towards the end, it may not be beneficial for them. It may allow for more injuries. And it also may allow, and it also allows these other teams in the division who are going to be battling for that last spot. It's allowing them to play a little more games, allowing them to maybe find their game. So, it's a 50-50 thing right here. It's like a 6 and 1/2 dozen in the other, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this pays off for the Devils. But Kevin, if you're listening to us, thank you so much for your question. That was a very good question to wrap this up for this week. And what are your guys' thoughts on everything we covered this week? Should we take the Canadiens seriously? Will the Rangers' momentum continue? Will the Blackhawks' momentum continue? And will the rain continue for New Jersey? Or should I say the snow in New Jersey continue, which we know it's sadly going to. So, yeah, it could end up being a rough week for the Devils this week, but we will just have to see. But you can always, check and see how we're doing. And make sure you follow us at our website, i80sports.com. If you're still looking for that perfect Valentine's Day present, maybe you should head up our shop and maybe find that perfect gift for your significant other. We have beanies, we've got shirts, we've got sweatshirts, we've got all you want right now. So make sure you hit up our shop at i80sports.com. And make sure you also hit us up on Twitter at i80_sports NHL. And you can follow us there for all of your weekly NHL coverage as well. But I also want to take the time to also thank our special guest this week, Tyler. Tyler, remind everybody at home where we can find you on Twitter, bro.
At Bleacher Mob Takes. That's
Sounds
it.
Good. Sounds good. Make sure you guys follow him on Twitter. Tyler, thank you so much for being our special guest this past
week. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And I've been Brian. He's been Tom. As always, this has been I80 Sports.